Melissa and I had been together for 5 years. We started dating during college, and our relationship had always been stable. She was the first girlfriend I'd ever had, and due to her parents being quite conservative, she had grown up under strict family discipline. Her parents were against cohabitation before marriage, so we maintained relatively independent lives. I respected her family's beliefs and planned to propose to her within the next 8 months, hoping to provide her with a stable future. Our relationship seemed stable, but we also faced many challenges and trials during those 4 years. Melissa's gentleness and thoughtfulness deeply attracted me, and she was an important pillar in my life. However, as time passed, I gradually realized that our relationship was not without cracks. Some issues had long been lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the day they would explode. Melissa had a male friend named Lucas, whom she had known since high school. This friendship had always made me a bit uneasy. Lucas came out as bisexual 3 years ago, which made me even more uncertain about how to view his relationship with Melissa. Despite my unease, I decided to respect Melissa's choice, and I only asked that she avoid being alone with Lucas. Eventually, we reached an agreement. She could see Lucas if there were other friends around, but she would avoid meeting him alone. Even after we reached this agreement, I still felt a subtle pain in my heart. I couldn't completely shake my worries about their relationship, and always felt that Lucas's feelings for Melissa might be more than just friendship. Sometimes this insecurity made me anxious and sensitive, but I tried my best not to let these emotions affect our relationship. However, these unexpressed feelings kept accumulating in my heart, like a volcano on the verge of eruption. Recently, Lucas invited Melissa to his birthday party. To reassure me, Melissa discussed it with me before leaving, explaining that the party was not far from home, and besides Lucas, many friends she knew from social media would also attend. Since I had other plans for the weekend and couldn't accompany her, I chose to trust Melissa and agreed to let her go. On the day of the party, Melissa sent me a few messages as agreed to let me know she was okay. But around 11 at night, her messages suddenly stopped. I thought she was just having fun with her friends and didn't think much of it until she returned home at 3 in the morning. I didn't ask too many questions, only cared about whether she was safe. But I noticed that she seemed exhausted and distracted. Her condition made me uneasy, but I chose to trust her and suppressed my doubts. However, the unease lingered like a shadow, and I couldn't entirely ignore the uncertainty and suspicion that had taken root in my heart. The next day, Melissa told me she had gotten drunk, which surprised me since she never drank. I told her to rest, but she seemed unusually low in spirits. She even came to my apartment and stayed in my room, refusing to return to her own place. A few days later, her condition still hadn't improved. I sensed that she had something on her mind, but didn't know how to say it. Whenever I tried to communicate with her, she would avoid the topic, her eyes filled with unease and guilt. Finally, one night, Melissa couldn't hold it in any longer and poured out her pain to me. She said that at the party, her friends had encouraged her to drink. Although she initially planned to have only one drink, she eventually lost control under their persuasion. Lucas had intended to take her home, but along the way, they encountered some other friends who offered to help take her back. Melissa recalled that after that, she became disoriented, with only vague memories of being helped upstairs and then slipping into a blur. With tears in her eyes, she confessed her deep regret and guilt for losing control of herself. She knew that this incident could destroy the trust between us. Her voice trembled, and I could feel her pain and helplessness. Hearing her words, my heart felt torn apart. On one hand, I felt deep sorrow for her experience, and on the other, I struggled with the trust crisis between us. Faced with Melissa's confession, I didn't immediately decide whether to continue our relationship. My heart was filled with contradictions and pain, but ultimately, I chose to stand by Melissa and help her get through her current predicament. I took her to see a doctor to ensure her health, and during that time, I tried my best to support her. Despite my lingering doubts and pain, I decided to stay by her side. Over the next several weeks, I accompanied her as much as I could, trying to rebuild our relationship through care and attention. However, the events of that night continued to feel like a thorn in my heart, making it difficult for me to fully let go. Every time I looked at her, I couldn't help but think of what had happened that night. Although I tried to convince myself to move on, the doubts and pain resurfaced time and again. Melissa also sensed my struggle. Our communication became less frequent, and the distance between us grew. She tried hard to regain my trust, but her efforts only made me feel more guilty because I knew she was trying her best to mend things, yet I couldn't give her the response she deserved. One day, I finally realized that I couldn't continue like this. I loved Melissa, but I also knew that once trust was broken, rebuilding it was incredibly challenging, leaving me feeling powerless. That night, I gathered the courage to have an honest conversation with her. I told her that maybe we both needed time to heal rather than continue to hurt each other like this. Melissa was silent for a long time before she nodded, tears streaming down her face. We held each other and cried, but deep down, we both knew this might be the end of our relationship. In that moment, I felt a sense of relief. Despite the sorrow and reluctance, I knew this was the best choice for both of us. We decided to take a break, giving each other space to rediscover ourselves. During this time apart, I began to reflect on our relationship and look back on the past 5 years. We had indeed shared many beautiful memories, but there were also unresolved issues that had always troubled us. Breaking up wasn't about escaping. It was about giving ourselves a chance to re-examine our lives and find true inner peace. Although our relationship didn't reach the happy ending I had envisioned, I believe this might be the best choice for both of us. After we parted ways, I gradually learned to accept the past and face life's challenges on my own. The early days were tough. I had grown used to her presence and sharing every detail of my life with her, but now those moments had become memories. In the quiet of the night, I often felt a deep loneliness, but I also knew that only by learning to be independent could I truly grow. Meanwhile, I heard that Melissa had found her rhythm in life again. She began spending more time on her hobbies, taking some painting classes, and even joining a yoga group. I heard from friends that she seemed happier and had regained her smile. Although we no longer kept in touch as often as before, I was genuinely happy for her and silently wished her all the best in finding her own happiness. During this time apart, I also began to reassess myself. Over the past 4 years, I had focused most of my time and energy on this relationship, neglecting my personal growth. I started trying things I had always wanted to do but never had the time for, such as traveling, reading, and working out. These new experiences gradually brought me inner peace and made me realize that life isn't just about a relationship. There are so many wonderful things to explore and experience. We were both trying to start anew, carrying our blessings for each other as we moved forward. Though we didn't end up together, I believe that through this process, we both learned how to love ourselves better. Perhaps after some time, we'll run into each other on some street corner, smile and nod in greeting, without any regret in our hearts, only deep blessings for each other.